Welcome to livestream video 5. I'm sorry about the delay today. There was some things happening and I couldn't actually record because it was interfering with the audio. So the program for today is as follows. We will fix the error. By the end of the last video there was an error, so we'll fix that. Although I have already fixed it, but we'll go through it and understand exactly what happened and why it actually didn't work the way I expected it to. Then we'll talk about making a framework for the mining vessel to actually do the mining operations, and then test those mechanics to find any bugs. If there are bugs, then we'll fix them, and if there's time, we'll move on to doing the vertical motion code. Remember I showed you in the last live stream, there was a section in the player controller that allows vertical movement, so up and down, rise and fall, but it wasn't working. And I press Q and E, nothing happens. So we need to figure out why. And if we have time by the end of this live stream, I would like to investigate that. All right. Now, before we go into the live stream proper, I'd like to invite you to give this video a like and share it. Share the link with as many people as you can think of and reach. And then also, if you haven't already, then please consider subscribing. And then actually do subscribe after considering, because it's one thing to consider, it's an entirely different thing to follow through. Right, so the first thing, fixing the stream, or rather the error at the end of the last live stream. So we saw that the mining vessel was moving upwards, and I couldn't figure out why. And we tried to investigate and fix the problem, but we had no luck. And then I even considered going to DeepSeek, sharing the script code, explaining a little bit of the error and why it's not working, or rather what I'm seeing, and that it isn't working and we need to find out why. And then I said I would try and figure out what's going on after the live stream, and then if I could, I would fix it, and if not, then that would be the first thing we do in this live stream. So we fixed it. Well, I fixed it, and now we will look at exactly what the problem was. All right, so let's go into the Godot engine and switch over to the mining vessel. Okay, so the first thing about any bug is that it should be replicable, right? So it should be able to be replicated by somebody else, or at least by yourself, right? So it should be something that if I do this, the consequence is always that thing, whatever that thing is. In this case, it's that the ship goes up. All right. And if there is a reason for it, I should be able to reliably cause that behavior. That's the ideal bug anyway. Not all bugs have that predictability or replicability. Some bugs are just nasty in the sense that you can't replicate them. And the worst kind is when that unreplicable bug happens on the client side. So the person you sell the game to, or your audience members, experience a bug, they report the bug, and you as the developer can't replicate it. That's the worst. Okay. So what we want to do is go over why it was or rather wasn't working, and then prove that's why it wasn't working. Okay, so the first thing was the grinder arm has a collision box. That's this thing here. All right, so I can go here to the collision shape 3D. You know what? Let's give these things better names, because mesh instance 3D is not descriptive. It's not helpful. especially if it belongs to the grinder arm, we should know that it belongs to the grinder arm with more than just the tree hierarchy, right? Oh, it's a child of the grinder arm, therefore it's the grinder arm's mesh. Yes, but we can name it something else. So let's do that. So we'll call it grinder arm mesh. And we'll call this grinder arm collider. Okay, so the grinder arm collider has the collision box with this gizmo, right? So this is the one that we're working with. And these orange dots, in case you're wondering, they are called extents, right? So the extent to which the collision box goes. So if I were to extend the extent to intersect, so if I look at it this way, like that. Okay, that's a good view. Here you can see this collision box and that collision box. Now, if I cause this collision box, you can see over here at the bottom, if I cause it to intersect with that collision box, that's what was causing the problem. Okay. So if I exaggerate that and I make it all the way in like that, and I extend this out towards like this and like that, kind of like what it was. It was like this and causing all kinds of problems for us. And I was not happy about that. So we'll save that. We'll go towards test flight. All right. And prove that this bug is replicable and that we actually did solve it, right? So we'll test that, and off we go, floating into the sky vertically. And you can see that by the blue box being moved and flying into and out of the green box, and everything is going away. And there's no immediate way to understand why, all right? But here's the cool part. If I press forward, we actually do move forward. See, we're moving towards the blue box, though we are moving upwards relatively. And another thing before I close this, I just wanted to show you that the grinder arm actually does move. Remember, we added the script to make it move when I press the fire button. So when I do that, I press the fire button, and there it goes. The grinder arm is actually grinding as I hold down the fire button. And when I let go, it stops. Okay, so that works. And if I go back towards the mining vessel scene and I undo these changes, right? So I just say Control Z a few times, like that, towards the way I did it, where it's not in anyone's way except for the grinder barrel, which doesn't seem to mind very much. That actually fixes the problem. So let's go back to test flight, save the scene, and run it again. All right, here we go. No drifting. Nothing. Problem solved. All right. Now this actually was suggested to me by DeepSeek. One of the things that DeepSeek actually suggested was you might consider checking your collision shapes and making sure nothing's intersecting. And I thought about it and I'm like, there's nothing in the code that's causing this. And when I test the original player scene, that drifting isn't happening. And so I went into the scene for the mining vessel, and there you go. There was an intersection. I undid the intersection, and immediately there was no drift. So, problem solved. All right, now back to the agenda. Now that we've fixed the problem and I explained it to you, the next thing we can move on to is making the mining framework. All right. Now, I'll just go through these points before we carry on. So the grinder barrel needs to collide with mining objects, in quotes, right? Well, what does that mean? That means I need to classify every game object as either it is or is not a mining object. And the best way to do this is with tags. In some game engines like Unity, they're called tags. In Godot engine, they are called groups. All right, so you group game objects under certain categories, right? So you give it a group name and you add objects to that group. So we want the grinder barrel to collide with, well, it's going to collide with all objects, but we only want to do something if it collides with something that belongs to the mining object group. And if it does, then we damage that mining object. If it collides with anything else, we don't want it to damage that. All right? We just ignore it. Or even better, we make it collide with it, but not actually damage. Right? So it should collide with the object, and then be like, in quotes, stuck, right? Pushed back, but not actually harm that object. Now you might be thinking, as a mining vessel, that makes it really defenseless. And that's the point, yes, indeed. The mining vessel is a specialist spacecraft. It's only designed to extract minerals and resources from asteroids, store them, and transport them back to the base. The protection is the department of the defender. That's his whole job, is to protect the mining vessel. And so I've thought about this a lot, and one of the cool things about that particular dynamic is we can turn the mining vessel's gameplay. So if the player assumes the role of the mining vessel, the game suddenly becomes a horror game. I mean, it's not like the traditional spooky kind of creepy horror game, but it is a horror game because you have limited visibility. You don't know where the pirates are, and there's this mechanic I'll add later, or planning to add later, which will work like a sonar or radar or some kind of ping, right? So it pings and finds all objects within a specific radius, and that will highlight which of the asteroids are high yield, right? So there's almost no yield in some asteroids, and then other asteroids are almost complete yield, and then there's a gradient in between, right? Now, as a sorry about that. I think there was interference between the mic and the phone. I'm using my phone as a camera, so that's unavoidable, I'm afraid. Where was I? Yes, so there's a gradient, right, between high yield and low yield asteroids. And as a player who is taking on the role of a miner, there's no way to tell which asteroids have high yield and low yield without having this kind of ping system, right? So you're looking for asteroids that are rich in iron, for example. Then your scanning system, or the ping, can be tuned to find a resonance or some type of property that is reflected by this ping. And the higher that reflection, the higher the yield of iron in that asteroid, for example, right? And we can change that to be any material, right? It could be iron, it could be corundum, which is like ruby and sapphire. It could be, I don't know, titanium or silver or whatever material you're looking for. And the quantity of that material in the asteroid is considered the yield, right? So how much it would give you if you were to get, or that's at least the potential yield. There's too many stats to talk about right now, and I might not even implement them all right? But yeah, so there's a potential, and then there's the yield. Okay, so let's use those words. So the potential and the yield. So a potential is if I were to have 100% efficiency and recovery from the mining vessel, if the vessel was able to extract exactly perfect amounts, like all of the material that I'm trying to extract from this asteroid that's available in the asteroid, right? All the available. And then yield is how much I actually get. So if I have an 80% efficiency, that's the maximum yield I can get from the potential. I could get less, but never more because of the limitations. And I realize again that I am talking to you without having my face in view. I need to add that in on this particular screen share. So you missed all my gestures. I'm sorry about that. But yes, that's the idea. We want to be able to get that to that point, right? So having this ping system will allow you to know where the highest yield asteroids are in proximity to you, right? So I'm over here. Where's the highest yield asteroids? Oh, it's over there. And all the nearby ones are low yield or mid yield or whatever, right? Mid potential. Let's use the right terms. Okay. The highest potential asteroids are quite far away, and mid to low potential are all nearby. Now, here's where it becomes harder. Here's where it becomes a harder game, right? When you do the ping, you will immediately alert all nearby spacecraft as well, ally and enemy. So the interesting bit comes in as a strategy, right? So as the player, it's not a smart thing to do to be excessive with your probing or your ping, right? Because you give away your location as soon as you do that. And I'm going to change the movement speed and the turnaround time and the all of the maneuverability traits of the mining vessel to make it more unresponsive or sluggish deliberately, so that you are motivated as the player, so that your motivation is only towards stealth and not like speed. You're not trying to dash towards the nearest asteroid, grab some resources, and dash back. That's not possible. You're slow and you're an easy target. That's why you need a defender ship to come and accompany you and protect you from these pirates. Okay, that's enough talking. Let's move back towards the mining vessel. Actually, no, we need to create a new object. So let's go to the file system, create a component, duplicate the target. Yeah, there we go. Duplicate the target and call it mining target. Mining object. No, mining target. Okay. Then we open up that scene. We can change the color of the mining target. First, we need to add groups, right? So the first group is a target group. Add it. Oh, no, wait, this is a... a global group. So make it global. We'll call it target. Give it a description. These are objects that can be damaged. Right? And then we'll add another group called mining object. And that's also a global group. Okay. Now this is not a target, it's a mining object. And the target scene is a target but not a mining object. Okay. Now if we go back to the inspector and change materials, surface material overrides, we'll change the albedo color from red to blue. That way then we can change the emission color as well from the recent colors. This one. There we go. And I'm sure it has a light as well. Doesn't it? No. Anyway. We've finished the mining object. And as you can see, it has a health bar. Let's make a duplicate script of behaviors. Target behavior, we'll duplicate this. We'll give it a new name, call it mining object behavior. All right. And so notice this. The assignment symbol is not columnar. That needs to be fixed. So let's do that. That's column 31. We'll make it nice round 32. And then this one. Excellent. Take damage. So the first thing to do right. You know what? I don't think we need to have a duplicate. We'll just rename this. Okay. Now we can add these colliders to the firing range to prove that only the targets can be damaged by a projectile and only mining objects can be damaged by a mining vessel. Okay. So if I go back towards the target behavior over here, no, this is not necessary right now. We just need to add in component mining target into the scene, just like this. So we'll name that mining object 1 and then just duplicate that. 5 of them. Okay, and now we'll move them like this. Next time I'll put this thing on aeroplane mode. Sorry about that. Where is the player in relation to the targets? Player is 130. So why don't I just do this? Change the transform to be 130 on the Z axis. Change the player change the player's position to 0, and change the mining objects to be all on 0. So let's do that. The transform. Okay, so now they're all here. We can set them all up to be on the x-axis instead. 130. And then what is the difference from these? This one. The maximum x deviation is 16 and minus 16. And then this one, 8. Okay, so they are 8 units apart. Good to know. So the mining object 1 can be negative 8, 16 on the z-axis. 2 can be minus 8. Excuse me. Oh, I see. I changed the linear velocity. Minus 8. 3 can be 0. 4 can be 8. And 5 can be 16. Perfect. Nice. Okay, so now the next step to do is to change the plasma bolt behavior in the script file over here. Where is it? Bolt behavior. There we go. On plasma bolt body entered, before you check if it has a method for take damage, first check this. If body dot group is mining object, or should I rather change it to be of target? If it's of type target, then if it has a take damage function, then call that take damage function and destroy the plasma bolt. Alright. So this will make sure that only ordinary targets can be harmed by plasma bolts. So let's do the test for that, shall we? Okay, so I see. If I go towards the defender ship, add the GUI crosshair back, go towards the mining vessel, and turn off this one's GUI crosshair. That's what I was expecting. Now I go back towards the firing range and test it. Okay. So now we've got our crosshair back. We can go towards the mining vessel, the mining objects, and prove that they don't get hurt. Okay, so shoot at some almost point blank. Aha, we got a problem. Invalid access to property or key group on base object of type static body 3D. Okay, so I'm just checking the groups. Okay, this one wasn't set to mining object. This one is set to target. Okay, so now we've confirmed this belongs towards the target group, and this one belongs to the mining object group. So let's try again. Never mind. Firing range. Then try again. Okay, fire. Same problem. Something is wrong about this. Checking if it's part of a group. And that is the name. Spelling is the same. Okay, back to DeepSeek. Let's do a quick check. We'll copy the code and say I've got this problem. Okay. Okay, so I've got this error where the game crashes once a projectile hits a target. Here's the code, and here's the error message. Please help me find the error without fixing it for me. Guide me to the solution instead. Okay, so it seems like I'm not using the group checking functionality correctly. Okay, so the error message indicates that you're trying to access a property called group on a static body 3D node. But this property doesn't exist on that object type. The problem in this line, if body.group is target, you're trying to access .group as if it's a property of that body, but in Godot, groups are not accessed this way. In Godot, you don't access groups as properties. Instead, you use methods to check if a node is in a specific group. So instead of body.group equal to target, you should use Godot's built-in method to check if a group belongs to a group, but a node belongs to a group. Replace the line with the appropriate method call to check if the body is in the target group. And a hint, look up node class methods in Godot's documentation, specifically methods related to groups. There's a method that checks if a node is in a particular group. You might also want to add a null check or verify that the body is valid before trying to check its group membership, as this can help prevent other potential crashes. The key insight is that you need to use the proper Godot API for fixing group membership, rather than trying to access a non-existent property. Alright, so let's have a check. Let's check that out. So let's go to Godot docs. and then search for group. Okay, so this is a tutorial on how to use groups. Add to group gods. So let's do that. In the target behavior, but that would make us need to make a duplicate for mining objects. You can also manage groups from scripts. Okay, so this if you want to do that programmatically. That's managing groups. Okay. Oh, okay. So what we need to do is check if body dot is in group. Yes, it's working. And just in case you missed that, we're shooting an actual target and it's taking damage. Okay, so that works. Now let's go and confirm that it only works on targets and not mining objects. So we'll stop here and you can see we are firing. We're firing, but nothing is happening. Excellent. Right. Now all we need to do is add a script to the grinder barrel and make sure that the sorry, I'm just thinking about this for a second. I want to change the size of the grinder barrel collision shape because I want an area node to do its job first, right? So let's do that. We'll change the radius and the extent on each side will be kind of like that. All right. Then what we'll do is we'll go to the target. We'll add these. No. Hold on. Wait a second. We want to check the plasma bolt. Plasma bolt has a bolt collision shape. And I want to change those extents to come back down to a realistic size. So then we don't need to do this. We can just undo those changes I did and go towards mining target. No. The bolt behavior was checking if the body that it's colliding with is of type target. So now we want to check if the mining vessel's barrel, the grinder barrel, enters a body that is of type mining object. So let's go to the scripts, behaviors, bolt behavior, and duplicate this. We call it barrel behavior. Okay, so now this is barrel behavior. We don't need to change the colors. That's okay. We don't need a time to live. That's okay. We don't need to override the surface material, so that's okay. It doesn't need a velocity. We don't need the set color function. And we don't need to update the position of the barrel. We just need, we don't even need to destroy it. It's fine. Just do that. So the idea just came to mind that we actually do want to destroy the barrel over time. But this is a later implementation. Okay, so let me tell you my plan. My plan is, depending on the material of the resource in the asteroid you're mining, I want the grinder barrel to be worn down. Okay, and over time I want to make an upgrade system for the mining vessels so that when you're starting out, the barrel has a specific type of material that is either very soft or easily worn down, and it's not able to cut into higher grade materials, right? So for example, if your barrel is made of iron, you can't cut into something like corundum, which is like ruby or sapphire, because that's the second hardest type of substance on the Mohs hardness scale. All right, it's the hardness of 9, where diamond is a 10, and iron is lower than this. And so it won't be able to grind into corundum, and you won't be able to mine it successfully. And at the same time, it will wear down your grinder barrel if you try. So the idea is that you should be able to upgrade the grinder barrel to have better materials, right? So you should be able to work up towards something like a polycrystalline diamond barrel, which would then be able to cut through basically any asteroids and extract all the resources for you without wearing it down at all. If not, or like it might just wear down very, very slowly, if at all. But for now, that's not important. Now we just need to make sure that we can actually mine things. And then once we can do that, we can build on top, right? So for functionality, fundamental functionality first. Okay, so if the body is of type mining object, and it has take damage, then call the damage function, right? And we don't want it to do 10 damage, we want it to do 1 damage because it's doing I just realized something. This isn't going to work because it's not functioning in the same way as a plasma bolt. A plasma bolt is only supposed to hit the object, do the damage thing, and then die. Whereas... Okay, wait, let's see. Does it work? My intuition is telling me it won't, but it might. So let's do the test. Okay, we'll go towards the firing range, swap the player for the mining vessel, and then test it. Okay. This is really hard to see. Let's just do a quick change before we run out of time because we only have like 5 or 6 minutes left. If I go towards the mining vessel and add in a light, let's do that. Okay. So minimize, minimize, minimize. Mining vessel, add light. Spotlight. Maybe we can change the rotation in the inspector under transform Y rotation like that. Okay. Just move the spotlight, put it over here, kind of like over there. Something like that. We don't need to be too pedantic about it. Just put it somewhere. Okay, and then we'll call that right spotlight. We will duplicate this. We'll call that left spotlight. And then move that the right spotlight on the right and the left spotlight on the left. Right, left. Got it. Good. So we'll save that, go towards the firing range, and save that, and run the test. Much better. Now we can actually see the grinder arm and how it turns. Okay. And so let's go over to ordinary targets. It's not doing anything as expected. Then we'll go over towards the mining objects. Not working. Why? No, wait. Did I change the bolt behavior? And not the actual... That's why. Okay, so scripts, behaviors, battle behavior. That one. That's the one we needed to change. So don't call destroy. Don't set the color, don't change the speed, don't set the velocity, we don't need the time to live, or mesh material, or change the colors. We don't even need speed. Okay. Okay, for now, it's only gonna be whenever the barrel strikes a mining object, it's gonna take damage. But once we have that working, I want to add functionality to make sure that when the barrel is turning, and only when it's turning, then it damages a mining object. So it should only damage mining objects and only while the barrel is turning. Any other time, it shouldn't do anything. It should just be like bouncing off or not doing anything, right? So let's do that. We'll save the game and then go back to the firing range and test it. Okay, so off we go. Slow down. Come on. Not working. Why not? Okay. Seems well, we seem to be out of time. I'll have to investigate this on my own. Or maybe we'll debug it in the next session. For now, we are out of time. So I'm going to end it there. But I do need to make a quick shout out to the DevVenturers. We currently have one junior DevVenturer. So shout out to you, Cubes. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it very much. And thank you to the rest of you for your time and your attention and for viewing. And if you shared the link, then thank you for that. And for the rest of you who haven't shared the link, please do. And yeah, that's all for this time. I'll see you.